Do you feel guilty when you don't post or engage on social media, or when you forget you even have social media for, let's say, a whole entire week? Do you feel a sense of guilt if you waste your time scrolling, or if you spend too much time on social media? Please do not tell me I'm alone in feeling guilt about both of these things. I recently asked this question on LinkedIn. I wanted people to share their social media guilt with me if people had any. And the comments and the solidarity really surprised me. Lots of people feel guilty posting. Lots of people also feel guilty not posting. They feel guilty not commenting, not sharing, not being on it. The guilt goes both ways. Far beyond social media, something else sparked in me. I think it's pretty normal for business owners to feel guilt in a whole lot of other ways. I think they also feel guilty for when they're not making money, or when they're making too much money, or when they're saying no to clients that aren't a good fit, when they're taking a break, and I'm sure there's tons and tons more. In this episode, we're kicking off a theme, what nobody tells you about running a business, and today we're going to hop aboard the Guilt Trip Express. So all aboard, beep beep, let's go. Welcome to Small Business Casual, the podcast for business owners building something sustainable, cozy, and tailored to their actual lives, not just their Google calendars. I'm your host, Emily Aborn, small business copywriter, lifelong learner, and Jeopardy contestant. From my sofa, of course. I'm here to walk alongside you as we make sense of the behind-the-scenes chaos and trade those stuffy business suits for our favorite slippers. Welcome back to Small Business Casual. This month, I have a lot of fun in store for you. I have a guest joining me, actually, Jessica Lackey. She'll be joining me next week, and I kind of tailored this entire theme for the month around her and my discussion. We're going to be talking about how the world of entrepreneurship can sometimes be like being in a casino, and why it benefits us to just like hop off that train, leave the casino with its flashing lights and promises of grand winnings and doing whatever everybody else is doing, and step back into reality and really reconnect with building businesses that we love. So after reading her book, Leaving the Casino, I decided that we're gonna use this month to speak to a lot of things that nobody really talks about when running a business, the unfiltered truths, if you will, but super kindly and lovingly, which is, that's pretty much what this podcast is all about anyway. Real quick before we start today, I want to give a huge hello and big welcome to a new listener, Richard in Belgium. Okay, I have to tell you real quick about Richard. He just doing the absolute coolest thing, and I'm going to make sure there's a link to his Instagram in the show notes. He started a company called Groove Fitness, and he's teaching these awesome, fun, inclusive dance classes where you just get to move your body and everybody is welcome and you kind of just do your own thing. There's no like dancing to the beat of any certain specific drum. It's like a feel-good, disco-inspired dance workout where you just get to be active, have fun, and feel connected. So definitely give them a follow over on Instagram. It'll at least you can follow along in some of his Instagram videos because I do think his classes are local to him in Belgium. But you can, crank up that disco and that soul and get those feet moving and that heart rate pumping. Okay, but I will include a link to follow Richard on Instagram. I just want to give him a shout out, and I super appreciate that you're here. Richard told me he found my podcast through the podcast listening apps and then started listening to a whole bunch. And I could not be more delighted to give him some reciprocity. And if you're a new listener, I obviously want to hear from you. So find me on Instagram, write me a review, send me an email, send a message or pigeon. But I definitely want to know who you are, how you find out about us, any questions that you have that you want me to answer. This is a conversation, and I always want it to be so. So throw it at me. All right. Today we are going to talk about guilt. And I know that you're probably wondering, where exactly does that fall with business ownership? We started our businesses, right, so we could be free. But I hear people expressing various flavors of guilt often, actually, in the entrepreneurial space. And so, as I like to do here, first I want to define guilt, and I also wanted to contrast it with its cousin or, I don't know, relative, shame. So guilt is a feeling of worry or unhappiness because you've done something wrong or not done something that you should have, such as causing harm to somebody, not calling your sister back when you said that you would. Guilt focuses on the action or inaction. Now, some people, I found Brene Brown actually said this and I was a little surprised, but a lot of people believe that guilt can propel positive change or action. So more on that in my thoughts in a bit. Interestingly enough, I want you to notice that definition says you have done something wrong, but notice that it does not say you haven't done anything wrong and yet you feel guilty anyway. That is a kind of guilt I have often, and that is called false guilt. So that's like you haven't done anything, but you still feel guilty. Who else is in that boat? Raise your hand to yourself. Okay, I also wanted to define shame. And just to differentiate, shame is a painful feeling of worthlessness, humiliation, or inadequacy. It is a feeling of being flawed or unworthy. Now, sometimes this is because a feeling of failure or a violation of social norms. But unlike guilt, which is about behavior, shame is actually about you as a person. And it does not tend to motivate you. I think a lot of people agree on this. It does not tend to motivate you positively. On the contrast, shame actually seems to be very demotivating. So today we're going to focus on guilt. We're actually going to focus a lot on this false guilt. But you will see how closely those two feelings can get tied together, and I think sometimes maybe confused or just blurry. So we're going to get into guilt for like making money or charging too much, guilt for not making money, guilt for saying no to a client, even if it's the right call, or, walking away from a project, guilt for, obviously with the right communication, guilt for setting a boundary, for not setting a boundary, and then becoming resentful, and then feeling guilty about becoming resentful, guilt for taking a break, guilt for social media, either being on it too much or not being consistent with it or not showing up ever or not commenting or not being on XYZ platform and all the things. Cue your own guilt inventory. I'm sure you have more to add to this list, but let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these various categories. Let's start with money guilt. It's a lovely double-edged sword. You can feel guilty charging what you're worth. You can feel guilty raising your prices. Sometimes I feel guilty when I give people a quote. I'm like, I don't know why I feel guilty right now. You can feel guilty making profit. You can feel guilty making too much money. You can also feel guilt marketing your services when the world is falling apart. And is it wrong of me to even be selling and making money right now? We'll get into that. But guilt can also show up when you're not making money, okay? It can also show up when you are feeling behind or you're not feeling like you're contributing to your family's income or thinking you should be further along. So you can feel equally guilty making money or not making money. And I think it's important to know that you can still see we've done nothing wrong here. We're either making money or we're not making money, okay? So that's a little bit of false guilt. Then we bring in some social media guilt, another no-win game. Either you've been on it a little bit too much, you're spending way too much time on it. Maybe you feel a little bit guilty because, like me recently, you fell into a trap of doing all the things you should be doing on social media, and you realized you kind of veered away from your actual voice. I had this happen recently, and I was like, it wasn't so much guilt, but it was like, oh my goodness, this is not me. I need to readjust. But maybe you have been performative, or you have lost touch with your voice, or you've outsourced all your content to AI, okay? And you are starting to feel a little bit of that guilt. Maybe your guilt is around wasting time on social media when you could be or should be doing real work. Will your clients think of you when you're posting, but you're behind on their deadline, right? People can feel guilt when they post too much. They can feel just as much guilt when they post too little. They can feel guilty if they're always online interacting and engaging. They can feel guilty when they're not engaging or interacting. Not being on it, feeling like you're missing out or behind or don't have the visibility that everybody else says you should. Are you bad if you don't do these things? Okay? So we feel guilty. It's another no-win game on social media. cue more kind of, I think, false guilt. And then how about rest? A guilty pleasure, if you will. Don't we love that term? Guilty pleasure. Like, no, it's just pleasure. I have no guilt. But we've been kind of conditioned to believe that our pleasure, our time off, resting during the workday, maybe going slow, maybe having a lazier day, enjoying your life. How dare you enjoy your life when there's work to do? Or being on vacation. Those things can all cue feelings of guilt. And then finally, setting boundaries. Actually, not finally, I have two more, but setting boundaries. So maybe that's like saying no to clients when you just really don't think it's a good fit, or you don't want to work with them, or you don't want the project. It's okay to just not want that kind of work, but you feel guilty saying no. Not being available 24/7 can make you feel a little bit guilty, and even setting boundaries. If I don't know about you, but it has definitely come with some guilt at certain times for me. So another one I think that is really relevant right now is marketing guilt. Now, I actually specifically kind of mean marketing and selling when, the world is falling apart, like the current state of affairs in the United States. You know what? Never mind, even just right now. This point stands evergreen. A natural disaster happens, a tragedy makes headlines, political chaos erupts, the economy tanks, and there you are looking at your little Instagram post that you were going to post today about your new offer, and you're like, is it okay to even post this right now? Should I be selling? What will people think? And if you do post it, you can end up feeling guilty. I find when that happens, it's most likely a sign like, okay, I need to wait, and I either need to change up the plan, speak to the issue, or just like let my feelings settle and see what is real and true here. But let's say like how things are currently going in the United States. I mean, to be frank, it is going on and on and on and on. There is no end in sight. So should we just stop selling and promoting our offers? Should we stop talking about our businesses? I mean, that is all a little unreasonable, because we also have to put, food on the table and make money, and we are small businesses. I mean, we are actually the economic backbone of this country. But I can say that doesn't stop the feelings of the guilt. Promoting your business when people are suffering, asking for money when times are hard, when gas is super expensive at the gas station, showing up business as usual when nothing feels usual. It feels really dystopian. Caring about your revenue and your bottom line, when bigger things are happening. And we all handle a little bit differently. I think some people freeze, some people go silent, some don't post, some don't send emails, they don't launch the things, and others carry on business as normal. So I just want to remind you that, when these things are happening, your business does not stop and your bills don't stop. And I personally believe for my business, like this is my why. My work is helping to change this world. My work is helping to shape other people's lives and increase the well-being of people around me. So I want you to tie in where your work falls into that, because your work matters and people need what you are offering, and they need you more than ever. And actually, they need positive, hopeful messages more than ever. But they really need us to keep on going, to keep on being resilient and successful, and step into those leadership positions. Like when the world is on fire, we need your message more than ever. So however you do it, maybe you are the person who spotlights other business owners doing good in the world. Maybe you are the person who helps other people communicate their message. Maybe you are guiding people or coaching people through this uncertainty, and you're part of reminding them that they're not alone. Whatever you do, it matters, especially when the news is terrible. So use that to help you unwind just a teeny bit of that guilt. Does that mean you market exactly the way you would on a normal Tuesday when something really, really bad happens? No, it means you show up with honesty, with awareness, with sensitivity. And in some cases, if it's right for you, you acknowledge what is happening. You don't have to write a dissertation on current events, but like a simple, I know things feel heavy right now, or I'm in this with you, right? That can go a really, really long way. And I also think that It shows that you're human, shows that you're trustworthy. You're not just a robot over there following a content calendar. So offer value without being tone deaf. If you were about to launch something, you can still launch it, but maybe this is an opportunity to adjust your messaging. Maybe you lead with service, not sales. Like if this helps right now, here it is, instead of like, buy now before it's gone. I mean, I don't use that language, but there's a good language swap for you. People are out there on social media and buying our businesses' services, and they're making that choice. They're making the choice whether or not to engage. Some people want the distraction. Some people want to dive into work. Some people are using right now to really focus on their businesses and make themselves be in a better place where they can help more people. So maybe you're part of the catalyst in that. Some people step away entirely, and it's everybody gets to choose. And if they're not ready right now, you will be there for them when they are. So please don't go entirely silent out of that kind of guilt, because I don't think that your silence is helping anyone. I think that showing up in a quieter, mindful, gentler way can be a great way to remind people that they're not alone. They're not alone in trying to hold it all together, and you're actually here and you care for them. So obviously, I think we all, at all times of life, have to examine our own integrity in our marketing. Be sure that we're showing up with empathy, in our own voice, aligned with our values. And you're not alone in this. I promise that is really, really hard for us. Actually, I'll include a link to an Instagram post I did recently because I really realized that I had veered off track. And I can get really frustrated sometimes because it is hard to know what to say these days, and I find myself there a lot often. So I just want to be, we're in this together. Okay. We took a little side trip there. We stopped and got some goodies, but we're back on the guilt road trip. So here we go. We've got our snacks now. Some more just like general good old fashioned guilt trips I see and I hear are things like people saying, oh, I should be more successful. I should be further along at 8 years in, right? I feel like I'm always doing it wrong. There's always more to do. How can I relax? How can I take a break? How can I turn my phone off? I'm not growing fast enough. I bought that course and I'm so guilty. I still haven't implemented it or watched it or done that thing. So these are like, I'm sure you have your own too, but these are just some of the guilt feelings that pop up. And now I want to talk about why it is nonsense and why it is often false guilt. Now, obviously, there's totally a difference. If you actually do something wrong, take ownership of having done something wrong, apologize to the person, and write it. I'm talking about false guilt, all these things that we feel guilty about that we really should not feel guilty about. And I have to say, I love Brene Brown. I actually really love Brene Brown. I don't find guilt. And maybe she's recanted on this. I only saw one little quote of her, but I don't really find it to be a wildly motivating emotion for me. Even if it is motivating, I don't think it's a very lasting push. So like guilt might get me through like, oh, I'm not going to do that tomorrow, but it doesn't always last. Nor do I think it really takes us forward with the right energy. So feeling guilty and then doing something out of guilt, that is a pretty sad way to operate long term. And I never want like a friend to call me or a family member to text me out of guilt or somebody to work with me out of guilt or pretty much anything. I do not want you to be doing it out of guilt. The other thing about guilt and why it is a little bit bogus is that there is it implies that there is a right way for you to be doing things. There is no rule book. There is no right way to be doing things. And what works for some people is just not going to work for all of us. Okay. So that's why we can feel guilty in both directions. And I think that's why with guilt, when it's unfounded, when it is false guilt, you really can't win. If you sit around feeling guilty, you have to figure out why, and then you have to get to doing something about it. And I would say try to harness something other than just guilt to motivate yourself towards the change. I think a genuine desire to be better, to make yourself proud, to align with, well, what really are my values, to maybe show up for somebody in a different way, and to protect your peace. Like those are all really, really great things you can anchor yourself in to motivate yourself forward. So guilt often pops up like when it's somebody else's expectations, okay? And we're worried that we are not meeting those expectations. And I will say when that happens, it's usually not your voice that's making you feel guilty. It's some person on Instagram or some business coach or your competitors that you saw or your mom, right? So next time you feel guilty, and you feel like it's because you are doing something wrong, I want you to get quiet and ask whose voice is telling you that you're doing it wrong. Is it yours? This is going to show you whether or not if you can get to the bottom of that voice, figure out whose voice it is, it'll show you, well, is that really what is like a value of mine? And if so, maybe it is. Maybe you're a little bit misaligned, or maybe you're trying to play by somebody else's rule book and you realize, oh, that's not a value of mine. So, I just don't think that guilt is the best thing to motivate us or to operate from. I think you kind of have to go to the next layer and figure out what is under it, where it's coming from, whose voice is it that is making you feel guilty when it's false guilt. But when you operate from a place of guilt, it's really creatively limiting. Creating out of guilt, I've done it. And it's not fun. It's really, really hard. It stops my thoughts way more than gets them flowing. It also limits your ability to make good, rational decisions. So when you are operating from a place of guilt, you're not making your best decisions. It can also have you ping-ponging around and second-guessing, because who's to say today you're feeling guilty because so-and-so tells you something, but then tomorrow somebody tells you something else, and now you're guilty about that. So you're constantly ping-ponging and second guessing. I have so been there. It is not fun. And it also diminishes your own light when you're operating from that place of guilt all the time. So some practical, like really practical, I wanted to make this tangible as well as like big picture. So some really practical shifts to get off that guilt road trip. And not that road trips aren't fun, but this is not one we want to be on. We are going to wrap up with an example I had recently where I explored my own guilt, and I'm going to break it all down for you. And once I unpacked it, it was a big epiphany, and it helped me to move on to a truer and a better place. So here's kind of the process, and then I'll give you the example, okay? So number one, name the guilt. And I want you to really say like, okay, so let's say you're feeling guilty. So you ask yourself, what am I specifically feeling guilty about? Get really granular about it. Am I feeling guilty because I'm not making enough money, or because I'm charging too high of prices, or because I'm spending too much time on social media, or because I'm not productive enough, or I'm wasting time? Name your guilt. What specifically are you feeling guilty about? Get specific. Get granular. Talk it out if you have to. Write it out. It sounds sometimes like a little silly already, but like when you say it out loud, but write it down, get it out, name the guilt. And I decided, you know what, as I'm doing this, I made a little note to myself. I'm going to include this process in the show notes, in extended show notes, just so you can do it for yourself live time if you're ever going through it. Number two, ask whose voice this is. It may be yours, okay? It may be yours, but I want you to ask whose voice it is that's making you feel guilty. Is it your mom's? Is it a competitor's? Is it the Instagram voices? Is it a business coach from 2019? Is it a friend? Is this voice relevant to your business and your life? What is really going on here? So step two, we're going to ask, whose voice is this? Where is this coming from? And number three, check it against your values, not the values of the voice. Okay. Do I actually believe that these prices are wrong? Or am I just afraid of judgment? Or am I afraid of what so-and-so is going to say? Do I actually value being on social media 24/7? Or do I just think that I should value that? What do I want my business to look like? What are my values? Not the voice that is making me feel guilty right now. And then 4, we're going to give ourselves permission to make the money without apologizing, to rest without needing to justify it, to say no without needing to explain ourselves, and to do it our way, because there really is no right way. And then sometimes we need to actually go ahead and actively reframe it. And I think this is when you shift into being motivated from guilt to actually being motivated for the right reasons. So if you're feeling guilty for resting, well, actually, rest is how I recharge enough to be able to show up and do my best work. If you're feeling guilty for charging this much, well, I'm actually charging what I'm worth. I'm actually charging according to my credentials and my expertise. If I feel guilty not being on TikTok, well, you know what? I'm actually very intentional about the few platforms that I choose to show up on. My friend recently was like raving about TikTok, and I feel a little bit guilty that I'm just not into hopping aboard another platform right now, even if it would be successful, or getting onto video. Like if I do get onto another platform right now, it would probably be Threads. But again, no more platforms. And sometimes that makes me feel really, really guilty when somebody's like, you gotta be here, you gotta be here. But when I reframe it as, well, I'm actually just trying to be really intentional about the places I am showing up right now, it helps to quell that a little bit. So I want to give you a bigger example of something that happened to me recently, and then we will wrap up. And I think you're going to be able to relate to this one quite a bit. So recently I hit a little bit of a rough patch. I had just a lot of, we'll call it just situations. Okay. I had a lot of situations in my business, and it all sort of left me turned upside down. So I'm going to spare you all the details. Maybe I'll share about it soon. But it had me really questioning everything. And I do mean everything. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? Why? How? Why am I going through this right now? It was like really, really uncomfortable questions. And they were honestly bigger than I was ready to answer during the week that I was faced with them. But they were presenting themselves loud and clear. And I really had to sit with them. And it was super, super, super uncomfortable. So one night I'm up kind of late and I had to write a client email back after hours. And it took me like an entire hour, maybe a little bit longer, honestly, to compose my response. I really wanted to make sure I was being succinct and clear and effective and honest and kind. I still made a typo, but whatever. Okay, so clock turns, let's say like it's like 8:30 then. And after writing that email, I sort of spiraled a little bit. My husband was downstairs talking to a friend on Zoom, and I was upstairs just having like my own little mental spiraling journey. And so I think if I'm honest, I think I was like a little bit bored, or maybe like a little bit lonely, or maybe I just needed something. So I picked up my phone. Now, I try not to be on my phone past 7:30 p.m. I try to bury myself in a good book, whisk away into some narrative. I'm currently in a book called The Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. Well, by the time this comes out, I'll be long gone that. But at the time of recording, that's what I'm reading. But instead of reading that night, I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled. And you know what else I did? I app jumped. I was like, I was going from app to app to app, literally jumping from LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram to Substack to Reddit to checking my email to Instagram again. Little New York Times spelling bee, little Scrabble. It was insane. Like when I finally snapped out of it and stepped out of my hypnotic trance, I'm just going to say, with my phone, and observed what I was doing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is weird behavior. What I am doing right now, this is crazy. So finally, I put down my phone, I took a shower, I got into bed, I started reading. And as I was falling asleep, I was really, really tired. But I was also feeling a lot of guilt. And I was feeling like really, like, I guess, frustrated with myself for just having spent my entire night like that. So I asked myself, like, why was I doing this? Because I don't usually do that. So I get to the bottom of it. And I think that is hugely important to overcoming these feelings, stepping out of it for a minute and asking ourselves, well, why? Why do I feel guilty in the first place? But then also, what was that behavior doing for me? What was that behavior achieving for me? So to continue my example, I realized that I was feeling guilty because, I don't want screen time. I hate scrolling social media without a purpose. That's not what I want to be doing. That makes me feel like garbage. And I was not actually present to my life while I was doing that. I also just don't like being on screens before bed because it doesn't lead to my best sleep. So my reasons for the guilt were legitimate. But what was under the reason that I was scrolling, what was under that behavior, that was the most important revelation of all, because that was a far bigger impetus for change than the feeling of guilt. The reason for me in this case is I was looking for something. I'm not even 100% sure what. I think I was like looking for connection, for answers, for some divine intervention to fall from the sky and show me the way forward where I was stuck, something like that. Like some influencer on Instagram could give me this permission slip or magical potion to tell me what to do. And so at the root of it all, I was like, you know what? What is really under all this, and this is like, it was so bad. It was so much to realize. I was really, really, really scared. And I was really, really tired of what had been happening to me. I mean, like exhausted. And I was terrified. I was looking for something to quell this massive feeling of uncertainty so that I could stop feeling so afraid of what was coming next. And once I realized that, the guilt subsided. And I had so much more compassion for myself. And I said, you know what? Now we have ourselves a conversation, Emily. Now we can work with this. Now we can do something with this. And I know, and likely you do too, the answer's not out there on the Insta chats and the face blimps. It is inside us. It is in our intuition, in our creativity, in our connection with ourselves and with the people in our lives. And then on that happy little note, I fell fast asleep. I woke up the next morning with more clarity about what was really going on and more able to take a action step forward. So I share this long example to share with you. Don't, even if it's false guilt or false or real guilt, don't write off these guilt trips entirely. Do get curious. Do unpack them and see what is underneath them. What is really going on? And I think sometimes you have to go a little bit deeper than you think you need to figure out what is really under there. And that's when you can start to change both the feeling and any behaviors that you want to adjust as well. So in closing and kind of like in summary of today, guilt is not always a bad thing. Even false guilt, it's not always a bad thing. If you listen, it can show you where you need to course correct or where you are maybe kind of looking outside yourself for your values, or it can signal a misalignment with your internal values. Remember, a lot of us are facing this false guilt, okay? And a lot of the guilt we're carrying around is not actually because you did something wrong. It's because you aren't meeting up to somebody else's expectations, or you internalized this rule that was never even yours to begin with. So a lot of it is not real guilt. Guilt implies that there is a wrong thing to do or a wrong way, and you are not doing it right. You have done something wrong. There is no wrong way, and you're not doing it wrong. You're doing it your way. The people who judge you for making money, for resting, for saying no, they're probably on their own little guilt trip over there too. And their discomfort with your choices, that's going to say a lot more about their relationship with money and rest and boundaries than it does yours. So don't borrow theirs. Don't let their guilt become yours. As I said, next week we're going to have the one and only Jessica Lackey, and we're going to be talking about leaving the casino, hopping off that roller coaster ride. But on that note, let's get off this guilt train because we've got business to take care of. I'll chat with you next time. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of Small Business Casual. If you love the show, make sure to rate, review, and share it with a frazzled business owner that you care about. Because this shouldn't feel like a roller coaster ride, more like a scenic train ride with snacks. Don't forget those snacks.